More than a decade ago, a young woman, a college student, was found strangled along the banks of the Carver River. Now, any closure in her murder seems to be in turmoil.
The murderer of Ira Yarmolenko has not been charged and is still out there.
The man convicted of killing her all these years ago will get a second chance to prove his innocence. Did you think this moment would come? I know we talked to you while you were in. What's that?
I've been waiting.
Did you think it would happen?
Yeah, just took time.
Jurors found Mark Carver guilty of the 2008 murder.
I think I'm wrong.
But now a judge says the evidence was questionable and he deserves a new trial. The team fighting to get him released says they're now ready to prove he's not the person who committed the heinous crime.
We're going to fight it all the way up through the governor's office to make sure he's proven innocent.
But investigators say they've had the right man all along.
As I respect the judge, I think the judge is wrong.
But still the questions remain. Did a killer just walk out of prison, or was he sent away for a crime he didn't commit?
I know I didn't do nothing. I'm innocent.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Carolinas. I'm Ken Lemon. Tonight we're digging into a case that I've been following for 11 years. From the moment University of North Carolina Charlotte student Ira Yarmolenko's body was found along the Catawba River in Mount Holly in 2008 to the moment that the man once convicted of her murder bonded out of jail. A judge ruled Mark Carver will get a new trial. And I was there to question him as he walked out of jail and into sunshine before headed home to wait for his next legal fight. Mark, what is it? How does it feel after 8 years in prison?
Feels great.
You had a long court battle. The DA says that he believes you are his only living suspect in this case. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I know I didn't do nothing. I'm innocent.
Those first few moments,
Yeah.
when that door opened, how did you feel?
Great. Yeah.
The person who bonded you out is somebody who was exonerated, and he says he thinks that he says he wants to meet and talk with you. Do you know if you're going to speak with him for posting that $100,000 bond that got you out here?
Yeah. I talked to him.
What do you want to say to him?
I thank him. I appreciate it. He knows what I've been through.
This is a small step for you because what you really wanted was to be found innocent. The judge didn't do that. So how does it feel now getting ready for the next leg of what will be more fights in court?
Just take it one step at a time. That's all I can do, one day at a time. Yeah.
Did you think this moment would come? I know we talked to you while you were in. What's that?
I've been waiting.
Did you think it would happen?
Yeah. Just took time. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What would you like the people of North Carolina to know?
It's been hard. It's been rough. Yeah. There's a lot more out there like it.
First thing you're gonna do. What's the first thing you're gonna do now that you're free?
Go see my grandbaby.
And that's exactly what he did. Since that moment when Carver got into a car and went home to his family, he's been spending most of his days with his granddaughter. He spoke with me weeks after his release about what gave him hope behind bars while he fought for his freedom. The man accused of a senseless murder with no apparent motive moved gingerly with a cane in one hand and his attorney's hand in the other.
I'm nervous.
Mark Carver's attorney points to this as evidence that he's innocent.
Does this seem like the Mark Carver who could go and commit this murder?
Yes, said prosecutors, they are certain that Mark Carver is the only living person responsible for the murder of Ira Yarmolenko. The body of the 20-year-old University of North Carolina Charlotte student was found in 2008 next to a car on the banks of the Catawba River in Mount Holly. Carver and his cousin Neil Cassidy were fishing nearby.
I hate it happened to her, but it wasn't me and Neil.
Neil Cassidy would have been tried first, but he died of a heart attack the day before his trial. Carver said Cassidy died of wrongful prosecution.
It was hard on him, put a lot of stress on him, because they accused him of something he didn't do.
Carver couldn't avoid trial. He was sentenced to life in prison.
It was long. It was hard. Yeah. Especially when you didn't do nothing, for something you didn't do.
His attorney said he was an innocent man with the IQ of a child, trapped in a place with violent offenders.
Sometimes there'd be fights and arguments and stuff. You just had to back off and let them go, you know.
Carver said he survived with help from sympathetic gang members.
Because they know I was innocent and stuff. And they kind of looked out for me. Yeah.
He refused to say which gangs helped, but he said he needed support. While his attorneys filed appeal after appeal for 8 years, Carver's faith in securing freedom was waning.
Sometimes I tried to give up.
He said letters to prison from family and complete strangers lifted his spirits.
Where did some of those letters come from?
Everywhere. Yeah. And I had people to read it to me because I couldn't read it. They said they couldn't understand why the system failed. They couldn't understand why an innocent man was doing time for something he didn't do. Told me to hold my head up and stuff. Not to give up.
Chris Mover from the North Carolina Center on Actual Innocence believes she helped the judge understand what all of Carver's supporters saw so easily.
The evidence that supports that Mark is guilty of this murder is as strong for him as it is for me.
A judge heard her arguments and awarded Mark Carver a new trial.
If not more, who?
Someone close to Ira, Chris Moore said. Someone who prepared to kill her.
This was a crime scene of somebody who planned ahead.
She said police and prosecutors wildly missed the mark and believes they need help finding the real killer.
I firmly believe we know more about this case than law enforcement ever knew. So hopefully somebody will ask for our opinion on that.
Carver is out on bond awaiting the next steps in the legal process. He said he put everything that happened before his release out of his mind.
How do you let something like that go?
You have to. I can't do nothing about it.
He spends his time with his 1-year-old granddaughter, born while he was in prison.
She gives me stuff, sits on my lap, talks to me and stuff. She gets used to me.
The district attorney plans to appeal to have Carver's conviction upheld. If that doesn't happen, he says he plans to retry the case. It's a troubling scene that started with fishing for Carver and a college exam and errands for Ira. The murder of the 20-year-old shocked the community. It led to an intense investigation and rewards for information, and ultimately the arrest of Carver and his cousin, Neil Cassida, who were fishing near where her body was found. But the moments leading up to Ira's death left very little clues about what happened to the vibrant young woman. It was a seemingly normal and beautiful May day in 2008, the last day Ira Yarmolenko was seen alive. It was exam week at UNC Charlotte when Ira stepped on campus for the last time, May 5th. The 20-year-old sophomore started her day taking an exam, then spent the rest of the morning running errands. Investigators say Ira stopped at a credit union at around 10:18 a.m. Then less than 20 minutes later, at 10:33, security camera footage shows her dropping off several bags of donations at the Goodwill on University City Boulevard. It was around 10:50 when she stopped at Jackson's Java coffee shop where she worked near campus. Then she drove to the Catawba River, 20 miles away, where police say she was going to work on a photography project.
I think that she was looking for a pretty spot to take pictures at.
Around 1:15 p.m., 2 people on jet skis saw Ira's body on the banks of the river in Mount Holly near the Stowe Family YMCA just north of the I-85 bridge.
Yes, 911. I'm a boater on the Catawba River. Above the I-85 bridge, there's a car that's run off an embankment, and there's a body laying there. I don't know if they're alive or not.
The last documented moment of her life was grainy surveillance video of her car driving through the YMCA parking lot. Police sent that video to NASA in Florida, hoping it could be enhanced so they could tell if there was anyone with Ira. They were unable to find evidence. The young woman was abducted and determined she must have met her killer down at the river. It was the next day that investigators confirmed it was Ira's body found on the river banks. And 2 days later, an autopsy report revealed she died of asphyxiation. Police said Ira was found lying next to her car. The North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation said a bungee cord, a ribbon, and a sweatshirt drawstring were found around her neck. Back 11 years ago, I spoke with those jet skiers who found Ira's body hours after she was last seen.
I knew she was dead, and I knew it was a crime scene. I can visualize her fighting for her life on this riverbank right here until someone, whoever it was, finally killed her.
Just days later, Dennis Lovelace and Brenda Pierce took me back to the river where they found Ira's body. It was emotional for both of them being back at the spot where they made the gruesome discovery. I still remember our conversation, Brenda breaking down into tears.
We came back on the Wednesday after we found Ira's body, and I couldn't stay. It's just really emotional. It's uncomforting. It's eerie.
The two were out to jet ski, a nice way to spend a summer day out on the water, the sun shining, and then
The car was right on the bank right here, and we turned around and came back.
they said the grass around the 20-year-old's body had been beaten down like there'd been a struggle.
That day it was so beautiful out here. There wasn't any clouds, and just right there was that's where we found her, and just the sun beaming on her face like that, I will never forget it.
It was well before any suspects emerged in the case.
Just wondering where the perpetrator went, which way did he leave? And when we come by here, it's going to always just those questions until they're answered are going to be in my mind, and her face is always going to be in my mind. It's going to be on my mind every time I cross by here, being on the water all the time.
A body found on the river, maybe a murder. It was almost unheard of in the small town of Mount Holly.
You don't expect anything like that happening near you.
I was there when police went along the banks of the Catawba River that afternoon.
A grassy area down a huge embankment. To me, that is a concern right there for how did the vehicle get down there to begin with.
And I followed the investigation step by step.
Someone caused her death.
The leads police had right after the crime and the challenges they faced. Plus, as time passed, investigators turned their focus to two fishermen. The evidence police say led to their arrest months after the crime, and my interview with Mark Carver from behind bars.
I don't know what they plan